Now to Uncle Sam's money problems. We want to show you your debt clock, America. National debt, more than $13 trillion. Well, now the South Dakota Republican Senator John Thune unveiling a plan that he says will cut the spending and tackle all that red ink. Senator John Thune is chairman of the Republican Policy Committee, my guest from the Hill. Senator, how are you? And good morning to you.
I'm doing well. Good morning, Bill. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. America needs ideas. What's yours?
We do need ideas, and particular ideas that will reduce spending. What we have concluded, and it's not a new revelation, Bill, but there are 26 committees in Congress that spend the people's money. We think there needs to be a committee that actually cuts spending here in Washington. And so one of the things that my legislation would do would create a committee on deficit reduction, a joint committee that would have both Republicans and Democrats, members of the House and members of the Senate. It would be a permanent standing committee of the Congress whose sole mission it is to reduce spending and to reduce the deficit.
Well,
and so that's one element.
Specifically, you want a line item veto. You want this House Senate panel that you described for cutting government spending, and you want to trim 10% off the deficit every year until it's gone. Do I have that right?
Well, we do, and of course this is, we've said, this is a starting point. Obviously we're not going to eliminate the debt overnight, but we have to put some downward pressure on spending or we're never going to start to get this thing under control. The other thing that it would do is it would create a biannual budget process rather than having an annual budget. We didn't even do a budget this year. We're not going to do a budget this year. We never get the appropriation bills passed on time. The budget process is broken. If we went to a biannual budget where we do the budget in the odd number years and then actually we do oversight in the even number years in election years, there would be a lot less impetus to spend money going into an election year so that people can, put money out there to buy votes. We think that would help control the spending that Washington does on an annual basis.
I'll hold at 41 grand. We'll see how the consumer reacts to that. We talked about that last hour. But this 10% reduction, I think it's an easy thing for people to understand, frankly. If you reduce 10% every year, are you at zero in 10 years? Is that what you see?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think we get to zero in 10 years, but we do lop about $1 trillion off over the 10-year period, and that's the minimum amount. That's the floor. You can do more, and the bill allows you to do more. We know we're going to have to take this thing in manageable bites, but we've got to start somewhere. We have just got, we can't continue to go down this path that we're on right now, and right now there isn't anything in the process here in Washington that squeezes spending or puts downward pressure on spending. This would be a requirement that this joint committee of the Congress come up every year or every budget cycle with 10% in deficit reduction. And then it would also put a freeze on discretionary spending at the 2008 level. It might surprise a lot of people to know that over the past 2 years, spending on the discretionary side of the budget has increased 24% at a time when inflation's about 3.5%. So my bill would take it back to the 2008 level, cap it there, index it for inflation. That also saves hundreds of billions of dollars over the next 10 years.
You said something at the very beginning there. You said $1 trillion over 10 years. So in 10 years, based on your plan, we're still at 12 trillion plus given today's dollar.
It's a minimum. It's like I said, that's the floor. That's the floor that you could save. But what I am simply saying is we need a process whereby we can start to make a dent in this deficit and in this spending. And I realize this isn't going to solve it overnight. We didn't get into this mess overnight. But when you have the top military official in this country, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mike Mullen, saying the biggest threat to our future isn't Al-Qaeda, it's not the Iranian nuclear threat, it's not Russian spies, it's our national debt. We have a problem, and we've got to start to get our arms around it. Now, this is a process reform piece of legislation. I think we're also going to have to follow it with entitlement reforms, and that's obviously going to take some leadership from the President and some bipartisan cooperation here in Congress. But this is the first time that we will have reformed the budget process in over 30 years. It's a process that needs to be reformed because it's broken.
Do you have any Democratic support, Senator?
I don't know that we do at this point, but we're going to continue to try and appeal to Democrats and Republicans who care about this, because this is a commonsensical approach. This isn't something that ought to be partisan. If you're serious about trying to at least reform the process here in Washington by which Congress spends the taxpayers' money, this is a good way to go about it.